You're listening to a Countout Podcast.
What it is, what's up, and welcome everyone to Faces and Feels. I'm your host, Rafe Houston, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. This one's pretty exciting for me. It's a new friend and a new upcoming co-worker, which is kind of interesting with some plans that we've got, but it's the voice of Big Japan Pro Wrestling, of Ruthless Pro Wrestling, and soon to join us on commentary for Bleeding Gums Wrestling. That's right, it is the one and only John Bullard. You'll know him from John Bullard Promotions, CCW, a million other things that he does. Please tell me all about them, John.
Hey, well, one thing foremost, I am excited to be on this. When we started talking, you're like, how you like to be a guest? I was excited because I love your show.
Oh, thank you so much.
This is awesome. So can't wait to get underway and have these discussions.
Oh, that's going to be great, dude. I'm really excited to chat up with you, and being like our ages are very similar and stuff like that. So I think we're going to have a lot of references that fly back and forward, and a story and timelines are going to kind of line up a little bit. So it's going to be interesting. So let's rewind it all the way back to the start. I always ask everybody, when you think back to when you first got into pro wrestling and some of like the first larger-than-life faces that stood out to you, who immediately comes to mind?
So I want to age myself. I'm 40. So for me as a kid growing up, it was watching WTBS on 6:05 Eastern Time here in the United States. And I was watching people like the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and of course the Stings and Ric Flairs and the Horsemen and all that. But the first real larger than life character that really grew and grabbed my attention as a kid was actually watching Hulk Hogan. Mm-hmm. And I can definitely say that because it was Hulkamania during that time period. So
running wild.
He was everybody's hero.
Yeah.
But the person who actually inspired me to get into wrestling was actually Jushin Thunder Liger. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Liger first came to the United States, as a kid, I was always telling everyone, I want to be a professional wrestler one day. And of course, when you're a kid, you're not like a grown adult, but everybody's automatically looking at the Hogans and Randy Savages and all these other larger than life guys. And they were like, you're not big enough, kid. You'll never be like this and that. Mm-hmm. And I remember turning on TV one day, and it was on a Saturday morning, and they were doing a recap of Super Brawl, and it was the Jushin Liger Brian Pillman match, and changed my life. That match alone changed the entire course of how I got in professional wrestling, because I watched those two guys. I was like, you know what? They're not 6'5". They're not 299 pounds of muscle. And they're killing it in the ring. And this is some of the most mind-blowing wrestling I've ever saw, because definitely for that time period, even to this day still, that match stands a test of time for how good it was.
No doubt.
And, man, changed my life.
Yeah.
It made me – it's a big reason why on a lot of my shows as a promoter, I actually showcase a lot of junior heavyweights. Even though now I'm 6'3", 275 pounds, but – my heart will always be with the junior heavyweights, because I remember as a small kid being told, hey, you're not big enough. Well, those guys are killing it. Yeah. And they were junior heavyweights. So I always try to go out of my way to showcase junior heavyweight wrestling on my shows as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think I've heard that's a real common sort of thing that I've heard when doing these interviews and talking with people. That sort of transition when you go from like, I'm into the Hulkster and Ultimate Warrior and all these like big WWF dudes from back in the day, and then they see their first juniors match. They see, Shawn Michaels, they see Eddie Guerrero, they see Rey Mysterio, who are normal size guys, obviously fit, but then the type of wrestling they're bringing, which is completely different to like a big Buddha leg drop and 1, 2, 3. it's like, whoa, what the fuck is this? You know, that it completely. It flips so many switches for people, and so many wrestlers are like, and that was the moment I knew I could be a wrestler, like over and over again, like for forever.
With me, my love for Jushin Liger is like, okay, you got Hogan, and yeah, he's 6'5" and he's 300 pounds, but Liger is literally a superhero come to life.
Yeah,
the costume, the mask, like it was the coolest freaking thing you've ever seen in your life. It's just like when he came out, for me as a kid, I was like, okay, I have never seen anyone look like this before. So this guy's instantly cool.
Yeah.
Then you watch him wrestle, and it's even more cooler. And it's like, okay, like that's my guy. And still to this day, I tell people all the time, he's my biggest influence.
Yeah, absolutely. He's awesome. He's also how I got my wife and my friend into New Japan as well, because we were going to Japan and I was like, do you guys want to come and see some wrestling? Like we could maybe catch a show at Cochrane Hall or something when we're there. And they're like, kind of, what's it like? Is it cool? And blah, blah, blah. And I go, it's like this, and just sent them a picture of Jushin Thunder Liger, and they're like, we're down. It was immediately how it went.
Yeah, Liger was my biggest inspiration. And of course, growing up in the South in the United States as well too, you know, wrestling's like religion. It's everybody where I grew up at. It was football, NASCAR, and professional wrestling.
Yeah,
that was like everyone's passions. Like either which one, but you know, you'll still see a grandmother, 70 some odd years old, would just get more riled up watching Ric Flair on TV. Yeah, and people would cheer for Dusty Rhodes and all that. So I grew up in a region where pro wrestling was beloved. Yeah. So, and of course, living in Florida, almost every weekend there was a wrestling show.
Sure.
And so many wrestlers live there too. So it's like, it's just, you can't, it's one of those inevitables. Like you're going to end up being involved in it somehow. Yeah. You know, just give it time.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me.
You know, it's crazy because I said we'd have some similarities and we're kind of similar in age and things like that. But then my experience as like a wrestling fan in Australia is the opposite of that, right? Like wrestling isn't a thing here in Australia, and liking it, especially for quite a while. I mean, I'm a great man now. I don't give a fuck about what anybody else says. But like when I was a kid and stuff, it was not cool to like wrestling. You know what I mean? Like it had the stigma with it and stuff like that. It wasn't on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly right. And there wasn't. It wasn't on TV or anything. So the only way I could watch it was to like find VHS tapes at the likes of Blockbuster and things like that, and then work my way through the back catalogue and kind of piece together the timelines and stuff because I didn't have internet. And I'm like, okay, so that's Survivor Series '96. I just watched that or whatever. But this is actually this, and and kind of put it all together. And then even through high school, we're getting into all that Stone Cold stuff and Vince McMahon stuff, and it's the coolest shit in the world to me. But none of my friends give a fuck about it. Like only me and my dad would watch it. On the weekend we'd have the new WrestleMania would come out. We'd have the video store put it aside, ready. We'd be the first to watch it. We watch it together. But it was just like nobody knows what this is. Nobody cares what this is, and it's like this secret thing that I'm a fan of. And where you're just celebrating it in the streets. I'm sure that's an amazing feeling.
It's wild to think about how your region of the world of Australia, like you guys actually have produced some really damn good wrestlers in the last 10, 15 years. Yeah. So it's like, for the love of God, Rhea Ripley is like the best female wrestler going, in my opinion. Yeah. And she's the pride and joy of Australia.
Yeah. It's amazing to see. I actually did an interview a few days ago with New Japan and TMDK's Mikey Nichols, who is one of the, original kind of wrestlers in Australia. Amazing guy, amazing wrestler. But we had that conversation. I'm like, for me, being a wrestling fan, that shit was so far away. How did you just do it? You know what I mean? And he was like, well, there was nobody to really teach us, but we were a bunch of friends that liked it. So we just sort of figured it out until like a couple of the older guys then went to Adelaide and like trained with the likes of Hartley Jackson and things like that, and then came back and then taught them, and then on it went, and then now, Australian wrestling. But like at the time they were like, we're just going to do it, which is insane.
Yeah, pretty much like, oh, we'll learn as we go.
We'll just figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. And and I could see in a different universe, if I like had a bunch of friends that were actually into it with me, I could see it spiraling that way. You know what I mean? But because I lived in a country town and stuff, I was so isolated, I then had no access to it whatsoever. And then as I got into university and I was in a band for 10 plus years and stuff, I kind of kept abreast of it and wasn't actively following it. And then it wasn't until I'm like in my 30s that I find my way back into it, and then podcasts exist, and then I discover the likes of New Japan, et cetera, and get right back into it and meet like an entire community of wrestling people. So I didn't have any wrestling friends until I was well into my 30s.
You probably didn't miss out on a whole lot.
I have been told that before.
Teenage wrestling fans compete like the complete shit. So like one minute they like you and next minute they hate on you.
Yeah,
it's
right.
like, oh, you're fans of that guy? Oh, like. Right,
just angry nerd rage. Well, so how did you go then from being a fan of this kind of stuff and seeing Liger? Yeah, and then how did you go? How do I now get involved? Liger can do it. I can do it. What are we doing?
Well, I always tell people this story, how it all involved. And so 8th grade, I'm sitting in business tech lab class. Mm-hmm. There's a teacher named Miss Leak. I always would call her out on it because I like saying I told you so to her. She asked all the students in the class, what is it that you want to do when you become an adult? Mm-hmm. And there's other people, the common child thing, most kids say, I'll be a police officer. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. And my ass looked at her. I was like, I want to be in professional wrestling. Yeah. And you hear like crickets all the way in the freaking, like the whole room got dead quiet. And she said something to me that was probably for a child could be like the most damaging thing that an adult could say to them. Yeah. And she said, well, that's nice that you have that idea and that dream, but that's all that's going to be for you.
Oh my God. That's, how do you say that to a kid?
Whoever pissed in her fucking Cheerios, I kind of like want to know because like that she was hateful that day. But the thing is, her husband is a huge wrestling fan. Oh, so that makes me laugh. Yeah, she probably is one of those wives. Her husband loves it. She hates it.
Yeah, she's just sick of hearing about it, kind of thing. And she's like, "I'm gonna."
Five. I look back at it now as an adult. Yeah. Like, yeah, she probably just hated professional wrestling because of her husband.
Yeah. But even then, it's a kid. You're a teacher. Come on, like
Exactly. Yeah. So years later, after this moment happened in 8th grade, I still had the dream, but I kept silent about it.
Yeah. It's worth noting as well. Why is that such a crazy idea? Like, I can understand them saying it's a crazy idea to me in Australia, but you're growing up in an area where there's wrestling all the time. It's all fucking around you. Everybody goes all the time. It's a very normal thing. So why is that a crazy idea?
I think for a normie that they don't understand, like, there's wrestling schools. We know about the trade schools for plumbers and carpenters and welders and all that, but for someone who's on the outside who never paid attention to what the world of wrestling really is, they probably think like, well, if you're not 6'6" and 295 pounds, jacked up on roids, there's no way.
And you're probably not going to be that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No. But either way, come on.
So years later, 11th grade class, tucked inside my English book is a PWI top 500. And the teacher came walking up behind me. I've known this woman for many years. And she saw the PWI and she went, oh, well, who's number 1 this year? And freaked me out first. I'm thinking like, oh, she's going to snatch the magazine out. She didn't do it.
This is the same lady or a different?
No, different teacher.
Different teacher. Okay.
One of my things when I do public speaking, I always talk about the power of one. One person can make a difference. Sure. To someone who pays attention to it. And then I told her, who was number 1 that year, and she's like, oh, that's amazing. My son knows that guy. It was Dean Malenko. Yeah. And I was like, your son knows Dean Malenko? And she was like, well, yeah, my son went to the power plant, graduated as a wrestler. Wow. Her son Matt was a freaking bulldozer of a guy. And I'm just sitting there going like, what? It's like the Charlie in the Chocolate Factory moment when the kid actually gets the fucking golden ticket. Yeah. And he's actually like,
you're like, I know a person who has actually done it. Like, I know somebody who knows somebody that has been there, bringing it closer to my universe, right? Like, yeah. So for me, I was just like,
holy crap, I've known you for the. Why didn't you ever told me this?
Yeah.
And so she's like, so you're a huge wrestling fan. I was like, and I blurted out to her. I was like, this is all I ever want to do.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I'll talk to you after class. I was like, okay. You know, kids were leaving the classroom stuff. I sat there and I talked to her and I was like, well, I was waiting for the whole, well, kid, you know, you got to be 6'6" and someone. I was waiting for her to say it.
Yeah.
She didn't do it. She said, so you really want to be a professional wrestler? I was like, yes, I do. She's like, well, I'll tell you what. Here's a phone number of the guy who runs some wrestling classes my son's good friends with. They're business partners. And I want you to give him a call and talk to him. Guy by the name was Spike Moore. And she was like, he'll talk to you and just let him know that I sent you. So, okay. Her name is Diane Struby. Never forget this woman, what she did for me. So I give the call, and I hanged up on the guy when he answered because I was nervous as hell.
Got too scared.
Yeah. To a guy with a giant mohawk, like, hang up, you know, like he calls me back. And he's like,
Read
you
off.
call this number?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I'm sorry. I must have had a bad connection. Diane Struby sent me to give you a call. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know Diane. It's Matt's mom. Yeah. He's like, well, what about it? And I was like, well, sir, I always want to become a professional wrestler. You want to be one of us, huh? Yep. All right, kid. Well, how old are you? Oh, that was a dreaded question. I was like, well, I'm 17. And he was like, He got in silence, fell over. And I'm just sitting there going like, oh, shit. He's going to probably tell me like, yeah, you gotta be in college or something. Yeah. He's like, all right, kid, I'll tell you what. Come to the fairgrounds this Saturday. We got a show. And have you help clean up, set up, do some stuff for us. Pretty much was already getting me into doing the whole grunt work type stuff. And sure enough, showed up to the building and set up chairs, helped set up the ring, didn't get in the ring. Because back then, in the early 2000s, they still had that old school mentality. You have to earn your rights to even touch that ring when it comes to being inside of it. So did all that work. And at the end of the show, got to sit there and talk to him and so forth. And he's like, all right, he said, next week we're going to have a little camp for locals and guys around here who wants to be a wrestler. If you can have your father sign off on the paperwork, we'll let you come to the camp. Sure. Awesome. Can't beat it. Go home. Dad, got this paperwork here. I need you to sign. My father looked at it. Nope.
Hell no.
No way, no. Nope. Shot it down, right?
Yeah.
Instantly, it was like that whole violin in the background.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Like everything's like the tears coming down. Like, no, my dream.
I'm so close. I'm so close.
So I did what any other knowledgeable, honorable child would do.
Forged it.
I forged the hell out of the paper.
Immediately, within seconds of that conversation.
I'll toss this away. I'm like, I'm signing the hell out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, what's the wrestling guy going to do? Going, oh, well, I've actually got a couple of your dad's bills here, and the signature doesn't match. Exactly. Like, who cares?
Like,
see ya. Bye, Dad.
Yeah. So sure enough, like I was told my dad, next weekend, like, I'm going to go over to Adam's house and my little buddy in school. We're gonna go. We're in a pay-per-view, and well, okay, cool. Like, do what you do. Yeah. Like when I got off that school,
I've got a wrestling school. Peace. Yeah.
Sure enough, went there, had that paperwork with the really crappy forged signature that anyone with hindsight will gonna go like, yeah, you forged that.
You signed it, Dad.
Yeah. D-A-D. Yeah.
Done. There we go.
It's like the worst cursive and history of man.
Yeah.
Luckily, my curse has gotten so much better, but holy shit, man.
Yeah.
My curse back then was garbage.
Yeah.
So I sent him that paper. He looks at it. I mean, he's like looking at the paper. He's like, yeah, okay. Well,
definitely forged, but that's fine. Let's go. I'm covered.
So here I was, 17 years old, in a building full of grown-ass men. And he started running these drills. And he was like, okay, we're going to do a mile run around the building. You're going to do all these push-ups, squats, setups. You're going to do all these crazy activities that most teenagers just don't expect. And so he's running through it, and midway through, my body's killing me. But back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, if you quit now, someone like Miss Leak gets the last laugh on you. You can't let that happen. So I sucked it up. And every single day I was going into those classes, sucked it up. And I've noticed that when we first had our class started, there's 15 guys. By the time we were done, there's probably about 3 of us.
Wow.
Left. Yeah.
High
Because
turnover.
back then it was all about weeding people out.
Yeah.
The ones who don't need to be here, see you later.
Yeah.
So, long story short on this, my very first real job in professional wrestling, how that all came about, was our commentator and ring announcer was sick, couldn't make the show. So I get a phone call. Now, weeks and months building into this, I was just a ring crew kid. Sit up, take down, practice, train, do it all over again, rinse, repeat. One day, I get a phone call. It's from Spike. Kid, got a question for you. Do you have a suit and tie? I do, for church. So, yeah. Good. I want you to bring that suit and tie with you on Saturday. Oh, okay. Like, I'm thinking back in my brain, like, why?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, I don't set up the ring with a suit, but okay. So sure enough, I was like, okay. He's like, good. He said, are you afraid to speak in front of people or talk into a microphone? Well, not really. I was shy as a kid, but I'm not. When it comes to wrestling, I could talk. He's like, okay, cool. I said, why you ask? He's like, well, our commentator's out for the night. We need someone to fill that role. And I was like, okay. He's like, you're that guy that filled that role. Sure. So there I was, 17 years old, professional commentator.
And is that straight to tape, or is it like through the PA to the crowd?
No, it was definitely straight to a camcorder.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I hate the straight to PA thing.
I hate it.
Some guys do it. But like for some wrestling can get away with it. Like certain forms of wrestling, like the Juggalos or certain things in deathmatch wrestling, yeah, I can see it. But like nothing kills the vibe of the referee being down. Someone hits a guy with a chair, and here's someone, wow, the referee's down for the count, but there's a chair shot. It's like, okay, so now your referee is Helen Keller. He's blind and deaf because he just overheard you yell out. He hit him with a chair, and he's going to get up and count to 3.
It doesn't work.
Great. Now you put all the heat on the referee.
Yeah. And it also doesn't sound good. Like there's just no way to actually do it well. I'm the same. I hate it. And then on the recording back, it sound like the audio's out. It just sounds terrible. I hate it.
And let's be honest too, most guys who think that they're really witty and funny on the mic aren't. So, and it's always the over the PA commentators are the ones who think that they're stand-up comics.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, like stop talking, please. You know? So no, it's always been my biggest role when I work for any company. I've actually have turned down bookings when I've been into places where the guy's like, okay, here's your mic. And I'm like, okay. And where do you want me to do? Or where's the equipment to feed this into? Oh no, it just goes right through the loudspeakers. I've actually literally have handed back the mic and walked out. Because I'm like,
that's not what I do.
That's not what I do, brother.
Yeah.
You know, and I got to the point now I offer companies, if it comes down to it, if you need me to bring audio equipment to actually record this properly, please let me do this because I will not do over the PA.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
That was 17 years old. I got the start of being a commentator and ring announcer. I've managed, I've wrestled, I've done all that, but commentary has always been kind of like the signature of my career, I guess you would say. A commentator and being a promoter. Yeah. It's probably the 2 things I'm most known for. So, hey, I can't complain. It's done me well.
So did that initial commentary that you did, do you feel like you fell into it pretty naturally, and then did that become a more regular thing? They were like happy with what you'd done, and they're like, we're just going to have you do this every week. Is that sort of how it
it kind of would have turned into, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because, I mean, I got to the point now, I offer companies, if it comes down to it, if you need me to bring audio equipment to actually record this properly, please let me do this because I will not do over the PA. So and was into that for quite a long time. Of course, when you first start out as a commentator, especially when you're a teenager, like you're going to make your mistakes, and you may not understand the reasons and hows and whys we do the things that we do as commentators when you're more seasoned. But you kind of learn early on not to bury the talent, not to worry about getting yourself over. It's about getting the talent over, using your skills. And I tell this to all the guys when I do hold little seminars, when I teach commentators things. It's you get yourself over by doing your job right. A good commentator stands out by doing the job perfect.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I mean, there's so many guys that you watch on the independent wrestling scene today. They want to turn into a stand-up comedy routine, or they go out of their way to bury the talent. And I don't understand, like, why are you talking down so heavily on the talent in ring? Is your job to elevate the people that are performing so the fans who are watching feel like it's actually worth their time watching this. If you tell someone this is a giant flaming bag of dog crap, then people are going to look at it as a giant bag of flaming dog crap. And don't ever do that to someone.
It's like maybe they're thinking that they have to talk down about the heel, like in order to, make the babyface look better or whatever. But I think the case is there's a way to, disapprove of what the heel is doing while still respecting the work they do in the ring. You know what I mean? Like that's what, like I'll do so. I'm very new to commentary, and so I'm figuring it out. And our promotion is very like laid back, loose bar, no ring stuff. So it is that kind of vibe. But if there's a wrestler that I don't like, for instance, there's this guy Cal Collins, and we sort of have a little bit of a beef and always rip on him kind of thing. And I'll be like, this fucking prick, man. And I'm like, but God damn it, I wish he wasn't so good at that. And like you try and do those kind of things, right?
You still give him his due.
Yeah, yeah. And you have to, because it's like he's actually too dangerous, and I fucking hate that because he sucks as a person. I'm like, that prick was in here ordering everybody around before the doors even open. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff where it's like we all hate him as a person, but damn, we wish he wasn't such a good wrestler,
I always try to do my notes when I talk to the guys, and one of the first things I ask them is, what do you want me to put over during your match? And a lot of guys will probably, my move. I'm like, no.
No, sir.
What about you do you want me to put over? I always like it when a heel cheats. I always use that old school, my God, highway robbery was shown tonight here, fans. I don't know about you, but, David Ali once again steals victory from the hands of the good ones and then shits on everybody else. Like, it's easy to build up a guy who is really good in ring, but he takes the extra step to do a low blow or hit someone.
Take shortcuts.
Just take a shortcut. And it's like, and it's a perfect example, like you said. It's a shame that he has to cheat when he is that good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's just little things like that really sells a character in wrestling.
Absolutely. And it has been really interesting sort of finding my way, because I kind of fell backwards into it. And, I'd been asked to help out with the Dude, Where's My Ring thing. And I kind of just sort of took the punt, like, you got anybody doing commentary? And Michelle's like, no, it was only a one-off show at this stage, so I wasn't really going to worry about it, maybe something in post. I go, do you want me to just sort it out? Casual, I say. Want me to just sort it out? I've got this stuff. She goes, oh, yeah, sure. And then I'm like, great, now I need to figure out how to do it, right? Like, and I know I've got all the audio stuff and things like that. And, I can obviously speak. I've been doing a podcast for a while. I've been in bands. I've done stuff. But I'm like, okay, now I need to be a commentary guy. And that's where I took the opportunity when me and Dean Olsen, who has been around Perth wrestling for like 16 years, we're buds. He was brought in as a ring announcer, and I was like, hey, is it cool if Dean jumps on with me kind of thing? Because I'm like, I need somebody that fucking knows what he's doing to do this. He sees Naz, and then we, just banter together and try and sound like two bros watching wrestling and having a few beers, is kind of like the vibe we go for. But it has been, as I've done more stuff and, as we it became an actual promotion beyond just a one-off show, and then jumping in and doing Bleeding Gums and stuff. It's been really interesting trying to like sort of work out how to do that better for talent I don't know, that I've never even met in real life, you know, that like, you know, writing notes and doing these different things. It's been an interesting journey, and I'm sure for you, even today, after doing it for so many years, there must always be like things you can think of and do better and improve on.
Every single day. There's not a show. By the time I'm finished with it, I'm thinking in the back of my head, could I have done that better? Or could I have called that move or the sequence? Or maybe if I add on a little special oomph to what I was doing, would that have been better? Yes or no? And I know with everyone, mainly those who are very professional, we always hate our voices. Almost everyone I've ever talked to, they're like, I hate the way I sound.
Yeah.
So many professionals have that mentality too.
Do you still feel that way after doing it for so long, or are you used to it now?
Oh yeah. I actually hate hearing myself talk.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't think I do anymore. Like, I don't think I'm like, I'm the best sounding dude in the world, but I've done the podcast for so long and I've edited my own voice so many times and things like that I'm like, it's possible. Like, you know, I'm over the hate phase, which is how I started. I was like, how can I even fucking hit release, like, you know, to the world of this episode, because like I am unlistenable to myself. But I think it just over time, you know, I'm desensitized to it.
Oh yeah. But no, it's you talking about having a good broadcast partner. That really does make a difference in wrestling too. And I have to say, I have been blessed over the years to have had some really good broadcast partners to work with me. To me, there's Joe Roberts, who was one of my first broadcast partners that I worked with on television when I moved to Kentucky. And we worked for Southern Championship Wrestling on WOBZ TV9. And me and Joe Roberts was probably the two youngest commentators in the state of Kentucky when it came to being on national, I won't say national TV, but statewide television. And we've had really good, we still are good friends after all these years. Me and him, of course, me and Peapod, who pretty much became very well known for with working with in Ruthless Pro Wrestling. And of course, we've also done some commentary for a few other little places here and there now that we're working towards. Of course, SLC Wars out of Utah. Me and Peapod does that as well. So, and Chris, aka Peapod, is one of the most professional guys
I love
anyone
Chris.
can work with.
He's one of my good friends. We talk almost daily kind of thing. Like, he's somebody I really respect. Like, I think the world of him.
Same, and he's such a great commentator.
Yeah, he's very
what he does as well too.
Because he's got that media background and everything like that, so he just knows how to project and to always sound professional. And I've seen events where before you jumped on, you know, where he's just on his own, but he has the ability to carry that. You know, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and what I love about him too, I'm usually the guy who takes a lot of notes. He's the one to get all my notes prepared. I don't have to do notes. He has all my notes prepared. He's like, I got you taken care of already.
That's amazing.
I just have this. All I do is I sit down, look over the notes, and call what I'm seeing.
Yeah,
and it works out so well. Steve Arendt in Chicago, me and him have a pretty good rapport together. Michael Allen. There's a handful of guys that I've been really blessed with. C-Nick from Georgia, but the one that I'm mainly tied into, or I should say, been pretty married to the last year or two has been Peapod.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, what a great guy to have as a coworker. Just he's so reliable and such like a good dude. How did that connection come around? Because I've followed Ruthless for a while. I'm good buds with Chris Kohlenberg, the owner, as well. Did you know Chris for a while? Is that how you got pulled into it?
We became friends over a mutual friendship with another person, and she actually introduced me and Chris together. She's like, I think you guys are both awesome. You both, promote. You both know your stuff. Maybe you help each other out. Well, okay, cool.
That's cool.
And we just became buddies, over music and our love for wrestling. And they were doing their second Chicago show that they're coming back to. And Peapod's original broadcast partner, he quit, or he had something that was going on in his life.
Yeah, Stoney, he's a good guy, but yeah, unfortunately he had to drop out, which is a shame because I liked their dynamic together. But yeah, he was just gone at some point.
Yeah, so he was, hey, he stepped out of the picture for a while. Do you know anybody who's a commentator? And I wasn't even trying to look for a job either. And I was like, well, I've been kind of doing this ever since I was 17 years old. Yeah. And I've been on television and multiple other things. So he's like, okay, we'll let you try out for this show in Chicago with Peapod. It's up to Peapod to see what he thinks so. I'm like, all right, that's cool. And I'm sitting back in my brain going like, man, I got TV experience. I'll at least live the shit out of this. Like, let's go for it.
Yeah.
And what a fun time it was, because it was actually the first deathmatch show I actually ever commentated.
Yeah, really?
Almost everything before that was either traditional wrestling. I'll call a couple of gimmicky matches here and there, but nothing like fluorescent lights and razor boards and all that stuff. That's a totally different ballgame. But I was actually always a fan of all styles of wrestling, including deathmatch. So I wasn't like caught off guard by the violence.
Sure.
So it was the first deathmatch show I ever got the call. And at the end, Peapod gave me a huge hug, and he's like, man, you're freaking fun to work with. You're awesome. You're professional. He's like, and he told Chris, he's like, I want this guy as my commentary partner.
That's cool. That's really
from now on. So we've been tied to each other. A little announcement, I guess. I haven't made it publicly well known. I won't be at the WrestleMania show coming up with the miasma for Ruthless Pro. My wife is pregnant.
Oh, congratulations.
So we had a little pregnancy scare.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. She's doing good now.
Okay.
She's okay, but doctors kind of have wanted me to stay a little bit more closer to home in case anything happens. So she's not by herself. So I let Chris know, like, unfortunately, I can't make the event as much as I want to, but family comes first.
Of course.
Chris was so understanding of that, and that speaks volumes of a promoter. A lot of times promoters get angry if someone can't make a show, and he was like, dude, your wife is pregnant.
Yeah.
I understand. 100%.
That's not Colin Berg at all, though. Like, he's such a fucking dude's dude. You know what I mean? Exact quote from him, he's like, I'm not in this to make money. He's like, I have a job. I do it to have a good time and to help people and to, create something cool. Like, that's why he does it, and that's his motivation. You know what I mean? He's not some kindy dude trying to hustle people and drive people to work harder than they want or anything like that. He's there to put on a quality thing and have fun with it.
And all my years of being involved in this beautiful business, Chris is probably one of the top 5 class act promoters I've ever worked with. That's just a genuine, hard-working, good person. Will give you the shirt off his back. Yeah, like he's a true good brother in a world full of brothers, and he's a good brother.
He's an actual good brother. That I can't speak highly enough of him. He's an absolute legend. How did you? So if working with Ruthless was your first deathmatch stuff, you had told me mate that you'd been a fan of Big Japan essentially your whole life. How did the transition come around to working on Big Japan's English commentary, which is really exciting?
So that all came about over the last year or two when I was kind of watching how New Japan has used their English commentators. And you look back at the Google statistics before English commentary went to New Japan compared to after. Yeah, they've done amazing numbers with just having someone speaking English for an American crowd, a European crowd, an Australian crowd who may not even know what a word of Japanese means. Yeah, when you have someone who's actually explaining like why Tanahashi is a big deal, why Okada and Shingo and all these other guys are why you're buying the ticket to watch them wrestle, and explaining the background, the history. It made sense to me, like, okay, they're doing this. Dragon Gate has some English commentary for their events. And of course, I already got my foot in the door now doing deathmatch wrestling here in the United States. but I also did English commentary for DTU in Mexico
Okay.
as well too.
Sure.
So one of the Mexican deathmatch companies.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I got my foot in the door in the American and Mexican deathmatch market.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Japan's that next call. And I'm looking at all these different promotions of who's got what. I'm like, Big Japan might be the best call. So familiar with their product. Been a fan of it since I was a kid in high school. I was like, all right, cool. So been friends with the owner on Facebook, but never really properly introduced myself to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I messaged him, proper introduction, did it all in Japanese, and let it be known, like, hey, if you are needing someone for English commentary, English media market, English media, whatever you need me for, I'm your guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got a background. I sent him my resume, my video work, everything he needed. And I was like, I treated it like a freaking job application.
Yeah,
Not one of those, hey, I just wanted to talk on a mic. It was like, I want to be an office man.
Yeah.
I want to be someone who actually does something for this company because I actually care about it.
Yeah.
And he saw that. And he was like, you know what? Let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
So over a month, we talked.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't like a one night, okay, you got the job. It's like, little filling out process. Like,
sure,
let's talk about this. Mm-hmm. So sure enough, December 23rd, 2023, he messaged me. It was Japanese time zone, American time zone, man, night and day. For him, nighttime is like 2 in the morning for me. I'm asleep. For some reason, though, that wrestler's instinct kicks in. It's like, wake up.
Yeah, right.
And little eye pops open.
You're like, something just happened. Yeah.
And my phone has a blink. I'm like, someone messaged me. In the back of my brain, thinking, there's only one person up this late at night messaging you. It's probably someone in Japan or Europe. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. You hadn't met me yet. You didn't have an Australian friend yet.
Not yet. No, I do. I gotta
get ready.
Tell people like, I got a new best friend.
Yeah.
So, sure enough, it was Tosaka. And he was like, all right, when do you want to start? And I was like, now.
Yeah.
Like,
let's do it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So, I've been an employee since. And
amazing.
Me and him has a really good bond. He's so professional and such a good guy.
Does he speak English, or you just do everything through translation and stuff like that?
I do speak some Japanese.
Oh, you do?
But all my messages towards him, and I do it out of respect.
Yeah, sure.
But if he does speak English, I would still rather try and talk to him in Japanese.
Yeah, okay.
Out of respect of his language.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Everything I do to him is in Japanese.
Yeah, wow. That's really cool. Have you been to Japan since you've been a Big Japan employee?
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's the next thing I'm working on. After the birth of my child, I'll probably will take my wife and the kid with me, just go to Japan, just
meet the office and see it all.
Give her the chance to see the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really exciting. I'm very excited for you, buddy. And I think that's awesome. And it really is a testament to anybody out there that, like, if you have intention behind what you do and if you mean what you say, you can make opportunities for yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you can do that and you can seek it because people can see your heart in like what you're trying to say. It's very important. I literally was sitting down with a young coworker. I work for a music store and I've been with them for nearly 10 years, and I've managed and I do education sales and I do all this stuff. This young guy kind of asked me, can I just sort of ask you, I'm kind of floundering a little bit and wanted to, think. And one of the main things I told him that, like, when it comes with sales and stuff like that, it's all about doing what you say. It's about intention and like showing who you are and your integrity and everything. Absolutely. And that goes for everything. Everything is sales in a way, Yeah. And if people see that and you say you're going to do something, you fucking do it. And then that's it.
I tell guys this all the time. When you're in the entertainment business, you're the product. You sell yourself to people. But you also have to sell yourself with the intentions on why people should buy you, why people should invest in having you around, because there's a lot of guys that want a quick payday, but they don't want to put in the work. I'm one of those guys, even though I've been doing this for freaking forever. I still look at it as a young kid. Let me roll up my sleeves. Let me put in the work. Let me show you my worth and earn my spot where I'm at. And me and Iji Tosaka, Had some really good conversations the last few days. Excited for the future. Got something really big coming to the United States. Can't drop it just yet, but I think once he announces it, it's going to be pretty cool.
That's exciting.
One of the things I'm most excited about coming up on the 26th is his press conference in Japan, and it's 9 promotions coming together.
I think I saw this. What was it? What's it called? United Japan something?
Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, United Japan Pro Wrestling, and it's like New Japan and Big Japan and Freedoms and All Japan Noah and stuff.
It's New Japan, All Japan, Noah. It's Big Japan Pro Wrestling, Stardoms, DDT, Gan Pro, Dragon Gate is part of it. Like, just knowing like one, even if you just see a New Japan Noah crossover, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, they've sold out huge venues.
Promotions, all the promotions in one show. It's like, wow, man, this is going to be one hell of a.
So many dream matches can just get like knocked out, and it'll be awesome.
Yeah, big time.
It's very exciting. Very exciting.
So I'm excited. Me and Tasaka-san talked about that. He's like, this is going to be a big deal for the wrestling landscape. He's like, after this conference is over, he's like, so much is going to be changed in Japan for the good.
Yeah, that's great. That's really, really exciting. Well, as a huge fan of Japanese wrestling and as somebody who travels there quite regularly, probably more than I should, I'm very excited to see what comes from it and if it can actually line up with any time that I'm going there, which would be awesome. Tell me a little bit about your promotions, because you run several, one of which people are doing with you, CCW, but then you do a lucha thing and stuff like that. Run everybody through like the various promotions that you're running at the moment.
Well, mainly it's under an umbrella called John Bullard Promotions, similar to the Jim Crockett promotion type thing. John Bullard Promotions itself, we do things a little differently. It's more family friendly. It's fun for all ages. Great wrestling. We try to make it fan interactive at our events. So we will, every match, choose a fan to ring the bell. We'll have a special guest ring announcer we pick from the crowd. There are so many different things that we try to do to get fans involved into our shows, where my goal is, like, by the time they leave, I want to see everyone smiling. I want to see everyone having a great time, because now it's not like, oh, I went to go see a wrestling show. Now it's like, I went to go to a wrestling show and I got the chance to be involved with it.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Or a kid get to walk out with a wrestler.
Yeah.
And it's not even the gimmick. It's not even like, oh yeah, you pay extra money for it. It's like, hey, you're here. Big fan of so-and-so? Yeah. How do you like to come walking out with them?
Yeah.
Really? Like, yeah, come out and do it.
That's cool.
And it just is this, for a young person, it blows their mind.
Yeah.
It's like the coolest vibe in the world. And I put myself in their shoes. Like, you know what? When I was a kid, I would have freaking killed than that.
Yeah.
That got selected to do that.
Yeah. And also giving kids to get that opportunity, like the opposite of what you got, where it's like, instead of like, you can never do this, it's like, of course you could do this if you wanted to do it. Look how accessible it is. And look, this is the ring and blah, blah, blah. And like, it's the complete opposite of your own experience.
And just trying to give back.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's really cool.
So we have that. We have Lucha Mask USA, which works with the John Bullard Promotion shows, which, of course, our area where I'm at, Chicago, one of the largest Latino populations in the United States. So we have probably some of the best Mexican luchadors wrestling in the city of Chicago already. We got so many talented ones, and so many of them are young, man. Like, there's like 3 kids on my roster right now. They're 16 years old that are just phenomenal in ring performers.
Yeah.
Septico. There's another kid coming up called Electro Boy. He's got real potential. Mahiko is really good. He's about 20, 21 now. But he started when he was a teenager. Like, they're all good. Every one of them. Of course, we have a lucha legend named Skyday, who helped train Pentagon, Ray Phoenix, Eddie Kingston. He's trained Claudio, Brian Danielson. Like, he's a mentor to a lot of guys.
Wow.
He literally comes to Chicago and stays in Chicago and just train guys.
That's sick. That's really cool. What a resource.
Yeah. So I mean, it's we have a really good foundation of pro wrestling. To me, Chicago is the capital of pro wrestling in the United States. We have more promotions, more wrestling schools in the city of Chicago than probably anywhere else in the United States.
Yeah.
But it's really good. We have that. And of course, the one that gets the most talked about is chaotic combat wrestling. And the best way I could describe it, everybody thinks it's a deathmatch company. It's a company that does hardcore wrestling, but the way we're doing it, people will like it or not, but we don't use glass in our shows. I feel like glass is probably the most overkilled weapon in wrestling. Like, no offense to anybody who does it, but you go to a lot of the wrestling shows who do, deathmatch hardcore wrestling. It's like almost every match is light tubes. That's all you see, just light tubes for miles. And it's like, well, what happens to the days of like good stipulation matches? Or, because I always watch like these groups and you always hear guys talking all the time, like, man, I wish people would bring back stipulations. And as a part of like what CCW is about, it's like, okay, well, how about the main event is the crazy stipulation match?
Yeah.
Everything else around it's lucha libre, strong style, technical wrestling. It builds into the madness that is the main event.
I completely agree, like, with the overuse on glass thing. I do like to see it. I mean, it's part of deathmatch. Like, it can be really cool, but like if you run, say, a tournament, like there was a tournament of survival not that long ago. They did one tournament of survival 666, I think it was. Every match was a different stipulation, and it was really, really cool. And like the night ramped up, right? And then the next year they did number 7, and there was no stipulations, and every match was the same. Like it was all just dudes hitting with like doing the same thing. And it's like you need to make it special because it normalizes it throughout the night. Like if the night ramps up to it, then it's kind of pretty shocking by the end. It's very visceral and it's loud and it's things like that. But if the entire show is that, then I feel like it loses its spice by the end. By the time you're in the main event, you're like, I've sort of seen this now and I'm desensitized to it.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yes. It's like, it's almost like the fact of, okay, if you haven't seen a light tube shot all night and then come to the main event and there's a light tube used, guess what? It gets a hell of a reaction.
Absolutely.
Because people have been waiting for it, wanting it. Make them want it, earn it. Like give them a reason why we do violence. To me, I always look at what I'm doing as kind of more similar to old school ECW, FMW. It's one of my big passions outside of Big Japan. I was a huge FMW and IWA Japan fanboy. So, and what those companies were known for, stipulations. Onita would always do the exploding rings or the barbed wire ropes or barbed wire boards or he's had like 100 different ideas.
Yeah, but piranha tank, insane stuff. Yeah,
but it works because it wasn't like, hey, you're going to see this every show. It's like, no, we're going to build up to that match 2-3 shows, and then when we give it to you, it's going to be like.
And also, adds the ability for the wrestlers to be more creative because now they've got to negotiate a new thing that's different to the last thing that they did and things like that. So it keeps things moving on. I had told you before we got on the mic when we started talking about Big Japan how Big Japan was the first deathmatch I ever saw, and I didn't really expect it at the time. So I'll tell you that story real quick. I've told it on the show before, but I feel like you would appreciate it because it's relevant to what we're talking about now. We had gone to Wrestle Kingdom, and they were like, we went to like a 0-1 show, and they were handing out flyers. We ended up with like almost a show bag, like a big plastic bag full of flyers for all the shows that were on that week because everybody's putting on their big show, piggybacking off what Wrestle Kingdom's doing in the Dome. And I was looking through the flyers and Big Japan's one really stood out. It was like big and red, and it had like at the top, it was like 100 light tube death match and the strong title and all this stuff. Like the way they lay out their flyers is really cool. And I was on the train and I was looking at it, And it was like that night. And I was like, do we have anything planned for like tonight? I was like, not really. I'm like, do you want to go to this show? It's at Corrigan Hall where we just were. I'm like, it looks like it might kind of be crazy, like, but I don't know what that's about. We could just see. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And we went, and it was a great show, and it was really funny. And, you know, the Brahman brothers are throwing around water and like all kind of crazy stuff is happening. I'm like, don't dunk me. But at the main event, you know, they take a time out, and I'm watching all the crew just like run into the ring, and suddenly like they're like hanging light tubes off the ropes, and like the people in the front row are putting on ponchos and goggles and shit. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like a Gallagher concert.
Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Like, I know that this is kind of like, I know it's death match, like there'll probably be blood or whatever. I'm like, what's actually happening? And it was like, I think it was Kobayashi and what's it? I always mess up his name. Is it Tsukamoto? You know, Takeda's partner.
Sekimoto?
Yeah, was it Sekimoto? No. He was. Sekimoto was actually, he was on that night, but he was defending the strong title at the time. And it was Abdullah Kobayashi versus, what's Takeda's partner from Crazy Lovers called? What's his name? Oh, it doesn't matter.
You're talking about Takumi Sekimoto?
Yeah, actually, maybe it's that. Yeah, the name is kind of similar, but yeah, he
has a shaved head.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, Tsukamoto.
Yeah, and at the time he had a big hammer or something. I believe it was him and Kobayashi, and they kind of, you know, lock it up or whatever. And then when Olmec goes into the glass for the first time and it explodes over the front rows, we're just like halfway up the thing like, holy shit, what is happening? And it's like so loud and so crazy and stuff there. And then instantly I was like, I need to know everything about where I can find this like thing, because it's insane. And I always say that, like, since we've started we did the first ever deathmatch show here in Perth, and I get friends to come down to the bar and have some drinks and watch this craziness or whatever. Nobody has a bad time. You know what I mean? And I've had friends that actively go to every show, whether I'm there or not, because they're like, it's crazy. It's the coolest thing, you know? I had my friend's girlfriend, I was sending her Takeda matches and shit because she's like into it now, you know? It really is like a spectacle. It's very cool.
Well, it's like my wife. She's a huge wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. She's pretty much like a little wrestling historian herself. And she's familiar with deathmatch wrestling, but she's never been to a deathmatch show.
Oh, right.
And so she decided to go to the Ruthless Pro show with me.
Yeah.
And this is way before pregnancy, so I'm not a bad husband. I didn't take a pregnant woman to a deathmatch show. But anyway, just want to put that out there. You know, so.
There's nothing wrong with that. I would have no problem with it.
Yeah. But she's at the end of the show. You know, we get back on the train, and I'm just looking at her. I'm like, I'm waiting for her to go like, And I was like, so what do you think of that? And she's like, that was so much fun. Mm-hmm. And it's coming from a girl who was like the biggest Ring of Honor supporter.
Yeah, right.
So she's all about like technical wrestling and
work
like,
rated
people. Yeah, fucking work rate guys and stuff. Yeah. And she was like, she's like the deathmatch community is actually really cool. She's like, everyone's ultra polite, everyone's really professional, they're down to earth, and the wrestling was actually really good.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, she's got to the point now like she has no problem like watching deathmatch wrestling with me, and you know, it's one of those things. And her brother-in-law I'm still working on because he's like a purist. You know, I was like, Jim Cornette. Like, I like Jim. I'm friends with Jim Cornette, but it's one of those things where him and I'm like sit down and just breathe. It's okay.
It's okay. There can be different things. It's fine.
Yeah. Different tastes for different folks.
Exactly, you know, right. And I think, you know, that stigma, you know, when you talk about Cornette or things like that, when they talk about, you know, deathmatch wrestlers and not knowing how to wrestle, they're really flashing back to a time when that was the case, because there was a time in that IWA Mid-South thing and that CW thing where it was there exactly that, and there were guys that couldn't work. But if you look at the current state of like deathmatch, there's some of the best wrestlers going are deathmatch wrestlers. You know what I mean? Like transition, moves, creativity, character, professionalism, care, all those things.
For example, anytime I hear anyone say a deathmatch guy can't work, like, okay, watch Eric Dillinger, watch Josh Crane, watch Atticus Cogar, Otis Cogar, Hoodfoot Mo Atlas can go. Schwartzy is a hell of a hand in ring. Remington Roar, when he's actually given a chance to really showcase it.
Yeah.
Remington could actually wrestle. Like, so many of the people that get like typecast as just a deathmatch guy can actually really wrestle too.
Brandon Kirk, Alex Cologne, Casey Kirk, like Akira, Joel Bateman. Like all these people like are amazing wrestlers. They just choose to like express themselves in a different way, and they do both. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a very special community, and I'm really happy with sort of how far it's come. I can't not say Neil Diamond Cutter real quick before we go, because
love Neil.
Hugely underrated professional wrestler. He's so fucking good. It was crazy that so Neil was my first ever international interview I did on this podcast, and then he was the first international wrestler I ever commentated for our promotion. You know, like he came to Perth and I was like, this is fucking insane that you're here in my hometown. Like I picked him up from the airport and I'm like, how are you here before I was ever over in America? Like, it's wild, right? But yeah, dude, it's a great
nice guy.
Yeah, it's the best, and it's such a cool community that really has given a lot of inspiration to me and led to some really, really great relationships as well.
Absolutely it is. And that's how I look at it too. Like deathmatch has given me a brand new cast of friends.
Sure.
That now I'll be honest, I talk to probably my deathmatch community guys more than I do the regular wrestling community on a daily basis. But you know, there's so many companies. I also want to give a shout out to a couple more people on the show here. Phil Stamper is another amazing commentating partner. We do work for We Love Wrestling out of Bempine, Wisconsin. We Love Wrestling is a promotion I think a lot of people should check out. Yeah, it's really
it's a great name.
Tommy Trainwreck, who's a hell of a deathmatch wrestler, his own rates. He's the owner of the company. Him and his wife runs it. And every show is just an amazing card of like the future stars of tomorrow that you're going to be big breakout indie stars. But he also has showcased some really good wrestlers that are legends. I also do work for what I call the pinnacle of Berwyn Wrestling for the Berwyn Eagles Club, a company called Squared Circle Megastars. Eddie and Will Ramirez are phenomenal promoters. They do a great job, always bringing in the best of the up-and-coming talent from all across the country. I think on average, our show has a roster from Florida, New York. We got guys from Texas, guys from Cali. It's a Chicago promotion that isn't really Chicago. I like it because of that, because it's like, okay, if I want to call a regular wrestling match for the same guys, I go anywhere. I go there because then I get to call a Will Austin. Sure. There's going to be a huge star. Prince Ahmed, David Ali, like all these guys that are just killing it right now. And that's the place I go to call those matches.
Yeah, it gives you the opportunity to tell different stories and experiment with different wrestlers and all that kind of stuff as well. That can never hurt.
Yeah, and to me, that's one of probably my top 3 favorite places I currently work at.
Yeah.
I love everyone I work for, but there's something special about being in the Berwyn Eagles Club. It's a historical wrestling venue. It's probably the best way I could put it to someone who's not from that area. It's like the Corrigan Hall of the United States.
Yeah, wow. The name is familiar to me, and I'm pretty sure I've seen wrestling in it, but obviously I've never been there, so it doesn't like...
So, give you a little history. The Berwyn Eagles Club has had professional wrestling there for over 20 years. It's a place where Shimmer came out of. So, like, any woman who ever became a big star in the last 20 years has wrestled in the Berwyn Eagles.
Right.
CM Punk has been there. Bryan Danielson has wrestled in there on a regular basis. Seth Rollins, like Eddie Kingston. Like, when you walk in that building, and the thing is, the building owners will tell you it's a wrestling venue.
Yeah, right.
That's what they look at it too. They're like, we do bingo, but this is mainly what we're known for is wrestling.
Yeah.
There's a wall of all the famous people who's wrestled there. All these autographs and stuff. So for a lot of the younger wrestlers who don't understand the history of what they're seeing, they're starting to see all these people like, wow, that made WrestleMania. oh, this person over here, New Japan, Wrestle Kingdom. Like they're pointing out all these things. It's like, yeah, they all wrestled here.
Yeah, exactly. Like a who's who.
Yeah. So to be given the opportunity to be the voice of Square Circle Megastars, be one of the voices for Ruthless Pro when they do shows in Chicago, it's an honor, because in my own nerd sort of mentality, I also got to put my stamp on the building's legacy as well too.
Yeah.
For being there to call it. I mean, I was there to call one of the very first deathmatch shows in the history of Berwyn.
Yeah, really.
The Ruthless Pro ICW show, that was the first time deathmatch wrestling was even allowed in Berwyn.
Wow.
So that was, it's about a historical show. I mean, it's
wow.
And now Ruthless is pretty much like the home promotion of deathmatch wrestling in Berwyn. No one else can really go there.
Yeah, really.
So for us to do that, it's historical, man.
That's really cool. Yeah, that I was like, where do I know the name thing? And that's where it's from. It's from Ruthless Wrestling. I was like, it sounds so familiar. And it's one of those wrestling venue names that and I'm like, but where is it? And then it just completely clicked for me. I'm like, I can now picture it. I know exactly which one it is.
And it's a building with such an aura to it too, because when you go there, you have the chandeliers and stuff. So you have like the glowing aura.
Yeah.
That hangs over it. So it's just like, man, nothing screams pro wrestling. Like when the lights get dimmed and the chandeliers turn on.
Yeah.
And you have that glowing effect to it around the ring. It's just like,
it's cool.
This is like old school ballroom boxing.
Yeah.
Smoky ballroom type vibes you see from the 1940s and 50s.
That's it. Yeah. Venues for wrestling, I've talked about it a little bit before, are so important. You know what I mean? Like anybody can kind of crank on a show and stuff like that, but to actually create that vibe and have the show seem polished and look good on camera and things like that, you really can't just pop it up anywhere. Like there's certain places that are just magic for it.
Yeah. Well, like there's a promotion, and I think it's in New York. It's like a former subway tunnel or wherever it was, but it's like a punk rock club.
Yeah.
And I love the vibe of it, because like all the graffiti is on the walls and stuff, like the murals and stuff. It's like, and dude, like it just looks like one of the coolest venues.
Yeah.
Anyone can set a ring in. It's like, it's small. So the atmosphere is like very intimate. In the looks and the artwork on the walls. Like little things like that really sets a tone to a show. When you go in there, you're like, okay, this isn't just an armory show. This isn't, some other building that looks like the same building in every wrestling video game. It's like, you go here and it's like, yo, this got presence to it.
Absolutely. And like the lighting and stuff and it, darkness, it absolutely sucks when you're in just like fluorescent lights. Like, you know what I mean? And like it can really take you out of it. So like, having some kind of vibe to stuff is really important. I'm going to use this as a segue to talk about somebody who achieved really good vibe with their new show, because we would talk about actually off mic before it began, and that is Bleeding Gums Wrestling. I think this is a little bit of a natural transition. How did you discover Bleeding Gums? Have you been friends with Andrew for a while? Because I think he did a great job of showing how you put on your first show and make it look really good right from the start.
So Andrew sent me a friend request after King of the Kill.
Oh, okay.
For RPW. And I saw him in a lot of the deathmatch groups and definitely for like the UK deathmatch scene. But he messaged me and he was like, oh man, huge fan of yours. And at first I thought he was ribbing me. I was like, no one ain't a fan of me. Like, come on now. And I was just like, well, thank you. Like, I was really appreciative of that. And I was like, well, thank you, Andrew. And like, we just started talking and he dropped on me. He's like, yeah, I'm starting up a promotion in Scotland. And he's like, and he kind of gave me the history of the Scottish scene in pro wrestling. He's like, they have some hardcore matches here and there, but not a full blown death match promotion. And he's like, my goal is to be the first to ever do it.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. Sure enough, man, that first show, talk about setting a tone. Like, he made a statement that night, and after that show was over with, there's nobody in the UK scene takes that guy lightly. after that. They saw that and they're like, no, when he says he's going to deliver, he's going to deliver.
Because I'm sure for a lot of guys, they were like, oh, this is just that guy that talks about wrestling on YouTube, he swears a lot, he's just a Scottish dude, whatever. But this is a guy who was like, oh, yeah, my plan for the weekend is I'm going to this area and I'm manually flyering it and handing flyers out to people and putting them on posters. Like, he goes old school and he just does it on his own. And he's like, I know all the regular wrestling people are going to come. He's like, I need to somehow appeal to anybody else that might go, oh, that would be interesting. You know, he's out there just like in the streets doing it. All the weapons on all the shows, he builds them all himself. He does like all his own design for stuff. He's it. He's got some helpers now, like for the next one, but he still does 90% of the stuff. He sends me like videos of his house and it's full of fucking weapons at the moment as he's building stuff. Merch. He's like, it's been a crazy 2 weeks. His like partner's away and he's just like destroyed the house, like building weapons for, you know, who just for their second show goes, I'm running a title tournament. You know what I mean? Like, it's a huge undertaking. Like, it's crazy. Chris from Ruthless literally told me, he's like, I put off King of the Kill for a long time because I really wanted to be ready because it's such like a crazy thing to do. But Andrew's so focused like on doing it and so unafraid of like hard work, and he barely fucking sleeps anyway, I think. He's just like, I'm just going to fucking keep drinking beer and fucking do this all night and then go to work. Like, it's just, he's a madman.
I have, as a promoter, I started promoting my first shows in 2012. So I have a lot of respect for Andrew. Not because he hired me to work with him, but it's you see it every day with him. Like, he's constantly promoting. He's constantly putting over the talent that he's bringing in. He's finding ways to get venues to jump on board. He's not afraid of the word no. You know, he'll go out there and grind until someone says yes. Yeah. It's guys with that mentality that are the most successful at what they do. And he's going to be successful with this.
He absolutely is. You don't do like approach the first 2 shows of a company like he does and not be successful. You know what I mean? Like, he's just really going after it. Like, and he's invested the time and the money, and he's ticked so many boxes. You know, all his merch game is on point already. He's already got he's already doing DVDs and stuff like that. He's already on IWTV for the first thing. I couldn't believe it because, believe it or not, it's a similar story. I ended up doing Bleeding Gums like commentary because he was like, yeah, and I'm doing this. And I'm like, what are you doing for commentary? This is a similar story. It's like, oh, I haven't really thought about it. I was thinking about maybe doing it myself in post because, you know, on the day I'll be running the show. I'm not going to have live commentary. I'm like, if you want me to chat up with your brother, I could do it. Like, we're good friends. We talk all the time. He goes, that'd be fucking sick. We could just like hang out and have some drinks and like do it. Obviously, I'm on the other side of the world, but that's the kind of guy he is. You know what I mean? He takes people's word for things and he's going to work hard and that's just how it is, you know? And I didn't know that when I did that I would debut on IWTV just because I helped my mate out with his commentary. Like, I didn't even know what it was going to look like. It could have just been like some trash back hall thing. I knew he was working hard, but I was like, I didn't know what it was going to look like on camera. And then when I saw the finalized sort of product, I'm like, it looks so pro. Like, I can't believe how well he did. Yes. Like, the lighting, the venue, everything. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that really blew me away too, because when you hear the word death match, I mean, let's be honest, you're thinking like, okay, it's going to be out in the field, or this is going to be in like some barn or some bar that's like run down. Nope, it was a freaking nice nightclub. It looked really good. Like you said, the lighting really pops. You know,
he had 2 camera angles going. You know what I mean? That's a limited setup to get started, but it worked. He had a guy on a handy cam. He had a fixed thing, so he had angles. And you know what? He fucking edited all that shit himself as well, like the video and everything like that. He's like, yeah, we'll do commentary after I finish editing it. Like, he just does it like himself. He's crazy. Guys
like him deserves all the respect. There should be no one ever disrespecting him.
No, absolutely
for the heart, the compassion, and the drive that he has. Yeah. But no, like, the show was great. I love your guys' commentary.
Thank you so much. Told me
when he messaged me, he was like, "Hey, second show." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "How you do commentary with our main guy?" I'm like, "Dude, I just listened to his commentaries. I could play off of this very easily. Like, this be great. Like, let's do it."
That's
And
very, very kind.
yeah.
I'm actually really looking forward to working with you. I've never obviously done like a 3-man sort of situation, but I feel like you're the kind of person I could learn a lot off, because for me, I just talk, I just like try and I approach commentary like hosting, right? Like hosting this podcast or an event or whatever. I'm bringing the viewer in and we're watching it together is kind of how I look at it. But I'm still finding my way and working it all out. So I think it's going to be really interesting and we're going to learn so much just in that dynamics. And we also have the safety net of it being in post as well. So we can kind of work through stuff. We'll vibe it. Like Andrew and I didn't even edit that. You know what I mean? We just put it on, we hit record and we just did the show and we went done. But we're going to have multiple voices there, and if we need to, we can do that. And I think we'll be able to put out like a pretty fun product by the time it's done. I'm really looking forward to it.
No, man, and I'm looking forward to that myself. Mm-hmm. That whole tournament is stacked with talent.
It's gonna be so cool.
No, man, it's yeah. I think this weekend I'm actually going to sit down my notebook and try to take as many notes as possible just to get prepared for the post-production.
Yeah.
Unless Andrew wants to provide us notes, Andrew and him.
I don't know if that's Andrew's style. He's organized with a lot of stuff, but I don't know. I need to go back and watch the other one so I can remember who everybody is. Because, like, literally, I was like, and who's this guy? Like, on the commentary, and he's like, this is the, but, he knows them all. And we approach it like, I'm the dumb Australian who is on the other side of the world. I don't know who anybody is, but let's all find out together. So, but yeah, I think this is going to be cool.
It's kind of historical as well. I'm not trying to cut you off, but I think it's kind of historical too. That a guy from the United States, a guy from Australia, and a Scottishman is going to be literally working together on commentary
in the second ever Scottish deathmatch show,
and a deathmatch tournament on top of that.
Yeah,
first ever deathmatch tournament in Scotland.
Title tournament, exactly.
So think about how that's got to be kind of historical in its own right.
That's pretty crazy. I hadn't really even thought about it. The time difference is going to be interesting.
and Andrew it broke it down to me. He was like, "Think about that." And he's the one who brought it to my attention. He's like, "Whenever an American, an Australian, and a Scottish person all got together on commentary for a show,
sounds like they're set up for a joke."
Yeah. An Aussie and an American and a Scottish guy walk into a bar. Bartender tells them, "Get the fuck out."
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what it's going to be, except for nobody can tell us to get the fuck out. So it's appropriate we're doing deathmatch wrestling and we're going to have so fun. But yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. Like mine never works that way. And then when people, point things out like that and stuff, it always blows me away. I'm like, wow, that's pretty crazy that, yeah, nobody's ever attempted that. I mean, I imagine that Andrew and I just in itself were the first ever Scotsman and Australian to call a wrestling match together, from different parts of the world. Like I imagine it's straight up the only people to ever do it. And that's pretty wild. The internet's a weird place.
It really is.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of when I did commentary for Set Up Thailand Pro Wrestling.
Oh, wow.
I did a 3-hour pay-per-view solo commentary.
Really?
By myself, and it's funny because after the show was published on the PSN network for pro wrestling, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then it dawned on me, I was like, dude, you kind of was like the voice of Thai wrestling.
Yeah.
And explaining all this, and you did it by yourself. Like, how freaking wild!
That's crazy.
That?
How many? Like, did they provide you notes so you knew what the fuck was even going on? Yeah. What I mean, did you get a book? Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, I study so much wrestling, and I started to study the scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was pretty familiar with a lot of the guys, and there's the ones I didn't. I'll message the owner and be like, "Give me the rundown on this person that we're talking about here, because they're not on any of the internet wrestling databases."
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know this. He's like, okay, well, this is their character. This is what they do. This is the storyline they're going with. And in the Thailand wrestling scene, they're real big on characters. They're real big on a lot of the wrestlers are based on like legendary folklores of Thai culture and stuff.
Yeah, right.
So it's like it's really cool. Yeah.
exactly. That's really exciting. And Big Japan are doing a show there like very soon, right?
So Sunday, Big Japan is going to be working with New Taiwan Pro Wrestling. So they're in Taiwan, and they're doing the first ever light tube death match in the country of Taiwan.
Wow.
So the Taiwanese have never seen that live and in person. So it's going to be wild to see how they respond to it.
Yeah.
Like, will the fans go crazy? Because this place is about sold out. It's a jam-packed crowd they got coming up. It's like over 400 people. So I'm really excited to see how the Taiwanese will. One, I know they're going to love the show.
Yeah.
But when the light tubes come out, because that's the main event, it's light tubes. There's no other light tubes, nothing like that used all throughout the show.
Yeah, they're saving it. The place is going to explode. It's going to be unbelievable. Yeah. And you're doing the English commentary for that?
We're going to be working on it in post-production.
Yeah, in post. That's so cool. That's really exciting. Well, yeah, like so much exciting stuff coming up. It's really cool that obviously that's coming up for Big Japan. Bleeding Gums Lust for Death tournament. That's coming up in days, right? It's very soon.
For myself, it's kind of wild to know that.
Oh, is it today? Or, I mean, they're in the past, right? Like, when is it? It's 23rd of March, right?
Is it about for Japan?
No, for Lust for Death, for Bleeding Gums.
Yeah, I think it is actually today.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously like 7 hours in the past or whatever for me, however you do that math. I'm so bad at that. I live in the future, but like, it's literally about, I have to shoot him a message and wish him good luck. But yeah, so that will be happening today, and then he'll be editing it and we'll be calling it within the week or so. So that's really exciting.
It's mind-boggling for me because I still look at myself as the guy who never thought of himself as being one of the voices of deathmatch wrestling.
Yeah, sure.
And for me, from like a year falling back into it, it's like, hey, you're going to be calling a deathmatch tournament in the United States, a deathmatch tournament over the UK, and then you're calling deathmatch wrestling in Mexico and Japan.
You're like,
it's just like,
that escalated quickly.
A lot of violence real fast.
Literally the definition of escalating quickly. But that's so awesome, dude. And I'm glad that you're like finding like another niche for yourself. You've obviously done so much for so long, and then you're like, oh, let me just dip a toe in here, and then you found something. You're like, oh wow, there's whole new waters here that I can swim in. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's waters that I'm actually enjoying.
Yeah,
that's the
great.
thing. Like, if I always tell guys too, is like if you don't enjoy what you're calling, get away from it.
Yeah,
because the worst thing here is a commentator that is not even enthusiastic with what they're watching.
Yeah.
That's like, I never want to be that guy. I'm a little monotone at times, but that's more of because I try to focus on being more of the professor of wrestling. I try to explain the holds and the history and the backstory of guys. But I also get excited when something actually exciting happens.
Yeah.
We're all allowed to have our holy shit moments.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Yeah. I think those are wise words, and it comes down to anything really. If you're going to put your energy into anything, you really need it to be something that you're passionate about, and if not, then you need to find another way to enjoy it. Because we've only got so much time, so on this world, so you may as well put your energy into it. Tell everybody where to find all your stuff. I know you've got a million things to plug, so start listing it off now.
You can find me on Facebook, John Bullard. Mostly Facebook and Instagram's like my two main things. So for my John Bullard Promotions, JBP Wrestling, also Chaotic Combat Wrestling's on there as well on Instagram, and also Big Fight Bullard, BULLARD. That's my commentator Instagram page, which I need to update that. It's been a couple of weeks. I need to get my ass in gear to start posting all the stuff I've been doing. But that's my main things I do. I also have a YouTube channel for different shows and events, which I'll send you the links for that too if you ever want to plug those.
Yeah.
So
we'll put it all in the notes, like anything that you need in the show notes and stuff for the podcast. We'll pop it all in there for you. Don't worry about that.
Well, yeah, that's the main places people can find me. So, and I'm an easy approach guy too. Just send me a message and chit chat, and I usually try to make time for everybody as much as possible. It's crazy. My good friend Ethan Hubbard, he also does on the Forklift podcast. He was joking with another person the other day. He was like, "John's like the busiest guy in the world that still makes time for everyone around him." He's like, I was literally sending him a message, and like I messaged him back. I was like at Berwyn, and it was kind of during downtime at the Ruthless show when we were taking down the barbed wire. And he's like, "Hey, how's everything going?" I'm like, I started messaging. I'm like, "I'm doing really good." He's like, "I was expecting to message me right then and there." And I'm like, "Well, I had nothing else going on. Like, my phone's right in front of me, so yeah, I'm gonna respond back and talk to you. Like, how's it going? You know?"
Yeah, that's crazy that you can multitask like that, even in the downtimes and stuff. I'll sometimes I'm good buds with the Struggles, who was doing commentary for ICW No Holds Barred. He now just focuses on ETU wrestling. But there'd be times where, he'd say something on commentary and I'd message him like a joke, expecting like he'll get it later. And then he messaged me straight back, but I can literally hear him talking. I'm like, how are we having a fucking text conversation while you're literally commentating a match? Like, how are you able to do this?
There's been moments where I had that happen. The last Ruthless Pro show, I kind of broke some ice for myself. Like, usually I never curse on commentary. I never try to go out of my way to do goofy stuff.
Yeah.
But it was me, Hoodfoot, Mo Atlas, and Peapod. And it was during the Bruisers match, and something happened. And of course, Hoodfoot's talking about Ronald Reagan. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, that always happened with Ronald Reagan, but never with Nancy." And of course, I don't know, it came out of my mouth. I'm like, "Yes, right. The throat goat never done anybody wrong." And Peapod loses it on commentary. Like, you go back and watch that match, and you just hear him chuckle and giggle like a little girl. Like, he's doing his best trying to keep composure, and he loses it. Which now is my new goal. Like, every show, like, okay, I gotta say something to say if I can make Peapod just break character.
That's great.
So.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I want to shout out Peapod's best line, because I always tell him it's my favorite thing he ever said. And he was building a commentary reel recently, and I was like, "You've got to put that line on it." But he just couldn't find it. Like, we went back to the event it was on, and he just couldn't find it. And I think maybe it got snipped out in editing or something. I don't know. I'll have to go back and listen myself. But in the thing, it was Mo Atlas, speaking of him, and Casanova Valentine were in a tag team tournament that Ruthless was putting on, and their name was the Death Wish Foundation, was their thing, right? I was the sponsor of the team, like, as a podcast, my name was on it. And so I was very excited to see them. And Chris goes, "Hang on, I'm laughing, so I'm not going to get it out." He goes, "That's right, it's the Death Wish Foundation. They're granting death wishes. And when it comes to death wishes, they're putting up John Cena numbers." And I was fucking losing it.
That's great.
It's great, right? And I was like, that is so funny. I'm like, it's one of those jokes where I'm like, does everybody understand how funny this is?
Sometimes when I do commentary, I try to do deadpan humor, but the most serious way of its own. King of the Kill, I had the referee cracking up laughing. They were having the doors, people going through the doors and stuff. I was like, "What's behind door number 3? A pile driver." And for some reason, he cracks up laughing. He's like, "That's so great." The delivery of like, "What's behind door number 3? Pile driver."
I love it.
I wasn't trying to be funny. I was just like, I just saw.
You just called it as you see it, but it plays.
I mean, we're used.
Yeah.
Like, here comes door number 3. Oh, what's behind this? Oh, a pile driver.
Adam and I, Dean, who I do commentary with, we actively try and pop each other because, I mean, like I said, dude's pretty laid back, and the idea is that it's a couple of drunk mates watching wrestling. And so we're always like, just like, I'll say something that's kind of like a little sidelong glance to see if I've broken him, like, in what we're doing. And it's he always makes me laugh. We've got a running joke about, in the very first show, it's like he's teaching me how to do commentary. Like, and so he's like, somebody kicks out at 2 and he's like, I thought that was it. And he goes, pro tip for you, Rafe, as a commentary, in commentary, you can always rely on I thought that was it. And then as the shows go on, even to today, I'll drop one of those and he goes, look at you, you're getting it. You can always rely on the tropes.
Yeah, absolutely you can.
Absolutely. Well, mate, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been so fun getting to know you, getting a glimpse at your history and all of the many things that you've been up to. I can't wait to work together coming up for Bleeding Gums. I think it's going to be really fun calling that tournament. I'm so excited to see the tournament. And then you and Andrew hanging out is going to be lots and lots of fun. So, yeah, thanks for giving over your time, buddy. I hope you've had a good time today.
I had a great time, my friend. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. So everybody out there, check out everything John Bullard Promotions, Big Japan, Bleeding Gums, CCW. The list goes on and on forever. Check the show notes to see every single thing that you need to find out everything the man is doing. And until then, remember, it's all about peace, love.
Thanks for listening. Faces and Feels is a proud member of the Count Out Podcasting Network. It is created and hosted by me, Rafe Houston. Edited by myself and the amazing Ryan Nietzsche, and the show is available on all good podcast platforms, so please go rate and subscribe. You can follow the show everywhere on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc. at Faces Feels Cast, and you can check out the Count Out Network and all our sister shows over there at Count Out Pod. If you'd like to book me for commentary, have an interview request, a topic suggestion, or you just want to say hi, you can email us at facesandfeels@gmail.com. With all that said, thanks for listening, and please support our friends and sponsors. Peace.
My body is a roadmap of pain.
DeathmatchWorldwide.com, the official online merchandise store that is only for deathmatch wrestling. Featuring official t-shirts from No Peace Underground, John Wayne Murdoch, Akira, Madman Pondo, Zona 23, Neil Diamond Cutter, G. Rayburn, Schlack, Necro Butcher, and many more. If you are a deathmatch wrestler, promotion, manager, or platform and are interested in joining the web store, send us an email to deathmatchworldwide@yahoo.com. Deathmatchworldwide.com for the violent feud.
This has been a Count Out Podcast. Ring Post Radio is the only show hosted by Ryan Knightsey and Scotty Edwards that talks about the entire world of professional wrestling. With new episodes coming out every Sunday, there is absolutely no reason to not listen to real, honest wrestling opinions from two crazy maniacs. Have a hot boy summer and listen along to Ring Post Radio every Sunday on the Count Out Network.